These islands were bought by the United States more than a century ago. Today, their people have a message for Greenland. As Washington once again turns its attention toward a territory owned by Denmark, voices from the Caribbean are asking a haunting question. Is history repeating itself? The story of Greenland may feel new to many Americans, but for the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands, it feels painfully familiar. Greenland is not the first territory the United States has wanted from Denmark. More than 100 years ago, the U.S. acquired another set of islands from the same European power, then known as the Danish West Indies. Today, those islands are called the U.S. Virgin Islands. And for many of their residents, America's renewed interest in Greenland feels like a replay of their own history, one in which decisions were made about them, but never with them. Across St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John, the past is impossible to ignore. Danish street names like Frederiksted still line the roads. Buildings made of yellowish-red bricks, shipped across the Atlantic centuries ago, stand as quiet witnesses to colonial ambition. The stone remains of sugar plantations still loom over the land, where enslaved Africans were once forced to labor under brutal conditions. Today, these remnants exist alongside the rhythms of Caribbean culture, vibrant dancers, drum-driven music, and living traditions. Yet they also stand beside unmistakable symbols of Americanization: fast food chains, big box stores, and corporate signage. The islands tell a story of layered identity: colonial, Caribbean, and American, all at once. History never repeats itself in the same way, says Stephanie Chalana Brown, an Afro-Caribbean visual historian. But it shows up in a different form. Brown's ancestors were among the first enslaved under Danish colonial rule. Today, she is part of a movement seeking reparations from Denmark for centuries of exploitation. She explains that her relatives were sold without consent, first as enslaved people, and later as residents of a territory transferred from one global power to another. And now, as she watches discussions unfold about Greenland, she sees echoes of that same exclusion. Decisions about land, decisions about military presence, decisions about the future, made without the people most affected. In 1917, during the chaos of World War I, President Woodrow Wilson purchased the Danish West Indies for $25 million. Denmark agreed. The United States celebrated. But the 26,000 people living on the islands were never asked. The U.S. justified the deal as a matter of national security, fearing Germany might seize Denmark and its territories. The islands became a strategic naval outpost. But the promised prosperity never fully arrived. The Navy base closed in 1948. U.S. citizenship came years later, and full political representation never came at all. Even today, Virgin Islanders cannot vote for president and have no voting representative in Congress. In recent years, President Donald Trump revived American interest in Greenland, an Arctic island rich in strategic value and natural resources. He openly discussed annexation. He refused to rule out military force. And while the rhetoric later softened, shifting toward access rather than ownership, the underlying question remained. Who gets to say? Greenland's legislature exists. Its people have a culture, a language, and an identity distinct from Denmark and the United States. Yet details of negotiations remain unclear, and to many, uncomfortably familiar. Most Greenlanders are Inuit, an indigenous people with deep roots in the Arctic. Their language, Greenlandic, is entirely different from Danish. Their traditions are not European, and they're not American. Brown worries that an expanded U.S. military presence could bring the same cultural erosion she sees in the Virgin Islands. You see our children learning American culture from television and radio, she says. And slowly, we're losing our own Caribbean identity. For her, Greenland is not just a geopolitical chess piece. It is a living society at risk of being reshaped without consent. The story of the U.S. Virgin Islands is not ancient history. It is a living reminder of what happens when power moves faster than people's voices. As the world watches Greenland's future unfold, Virgin Islanders are offering a warning drawn from lived experience. Progress without participation leaves scars. Security without consent breeds resentment. And history, when ignored, has a way of returning. Not the same, but familiar enough to recognize. The question now is whether the lessons of the past will finally be heard.